What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Grid Encore. I'm Ben Schneider, joined as always by Brandon Crossland. Brandon, how are you tonight?
All right, Ben, good to see you again for another Motor Monday. And also hope you had a great 4th of July weekend because, of course, we got to celebrate the home of the Frave because of the Brave. And this is something I wanted to pull out for a while. This is something my wife and I got a local pop shelf, which is a part of Dollar General company. And somewhere in the country of China, they took this rave part and put it on where free is supposed to be. And so you thought, you know what? We didn't realize we got this until we got home, that it was messed up. So, you know, I think this is going to be a time. This is going to be a piece that we're going to cherish for years to come.
Yeah.
We are a home of the Frave because of the Brave.
Now, was that a widespread production error? Like they sent a whole bunch of them out like that?
No. This was probably like the odd one of the bunch.
There you go. That could be worth something one day potentially.
Sure. Yeah.
Collectors love that stuff. Those production errors and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you had a good 4th of July weekend as well. Wishing you and your family all the best, and led right into the Chicago weekend. So certainly hope all the best for all the fans out there. Unfortunate that we got so much weather again on Sunday for the second year in a row, but thankfully this year the Xfinity Series race actually was able to run to its conclusion, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But first, as always, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you so much for your support. And if you're watching this, you like what you see tonight, you can consider joining them through the link in the description box below. And as you can see, we have a goal long-term of $500 per month that will help us get to the track and provide you with more on-site coverage on a more regular basis. And that will only help us grow this media outlet even more. Or if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can do that through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below, or through YouTube's Super Chat feature if you're watching us live here as well. And as always, you can follow us on all our social media platforms at Grid Network TV on all social media, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss a single new episode of Encore or any of the other programs here on the Grid Network. Now, let's start with the Xfinity Series race. And stop me if you've heard this before. Shane Van Gisbergen took the victory on a street course / road course here at Chicago. Not the Cup Series race that he was hoping for. Didn't get to defend his title in that race. But here in Xfinity, a great battle with Kyle Larson to take the race win, his 3rd of the season, all on tracks that turn left and right. Brandon, is this a good consolation prize, at least for SVG? And maybe even a little bit more than that, considering this is the series where he's competing for a championship.
Yeah, it makes you feel a lot better since it is the one that he is running for the title in. But, man, it was such a gut punch to have a little incident yesterday with Chase Briscoe. And, again, to have Chicago in the rain. Like, what do we got to do to have – I know there's no way to control the elements, but what do we have to do to get a Chicago street course race on Sunday as bright and sunny as it was Saturday? The Xfinity got the gold mine that they should have got last year, but thankfully we got a full Xfinity race out at Chicago. That's more than we could say last year for Cole Custer's win after just a handful of laps in a monsoon last July. But yeah, Shane Van Gisbergen winning the Xfinity race at Chicago. No surprise there, but man, it was a thrilling battle between him and Kyle Larson, the two juggernauts of the field, to get it done. And his last 2 wins at the last two road courses we've been to with Portland and Sonoma. So this is going to be his way into the playoffs. He's already there, but I mean, this is going to be his way to keep adding points. Definitely with the road courses. Think about the Roval down the line, and also Watkins Glen. Looking forward to seeing him there as well. But still gutted by the Cup race result, though, because he was going to win that race. I believe he was either going to win that one too and sweep the weekend, or they were going to have to punt him out of the way to do it because he's so good there at the Chicago street course.
Yeah, and ironically, I think it was part of his veteran experience. I say veteran experience just speaking generally as a race car driver. Obviously, he's still learning the NASCAR stock car side of things, but he was good enough to win on debut last year still in last year's race. But I think that his experience as a veteran driver kind of taking it easy, as everybody was figuring out the elements, maybe put him in that position where he was a little bit further back behind the cars ahead of him as everybody was tiptoeing around the elements, and Briscoe spinning out of control, obviously not intentionally taking him out, but just an unfortunate deal for him there to not get the chance to defend his Cup Series victory. An interesting stat, though, Alex Bowman, of course, went on to win that race. Bowman finished last in the 2023 race.
Yeah.
And then you have this role reversal this year where not only does last year's winner finish last in the second race, but last year's second place finisher, or last place finisher rather, in the second year, he goes on to win the race. So you've got to get Brock on that. I think he was saying that that's the first time that that's ever happened, at least in the modern era, for track's first two dates, where the same two guys won and finished last, but it was a role reversal from the first year to the second year. But as for Xfinity, though, again, as much as I'm, just in try to remain consistent no matter who the driver is. Kyle Larson or Ty Gibbs, despite their difference in their Cup experience, not a huge fan of seeing either of them in this race here. But I can't deny they put on one heck of a show. If you were a fan going out to your first Xfinity race in the city of Chicago, having the race kind of be brought to you, so to speak, certainly you got your money's worth on Saturday. And it's something that I think, unfortunately, last year's fans that went on Saturday couldn't say because the race was cut so short here. So once again, you're running out of superlatives for SVG here in the Xfinity Series. It's almost unfair to have him in this field, I feel like. And I think he's certainly ready for Cup on road and street courses. The ovals are obviously a different story, and we'll see how far he can progress in the second half of the year. But a great battle nonetheless. And let's talk about Larson a little bit more as well. Obviously, he won the COTA race at SVG, came up just short in on the track. Of course, he got that penalty that shoveled him much further back in the race results. But between that and the battle here on Saturday that led him to finish third, has Larson proven that he can match SVG's road course pace? He can go head to head with one of the best in the world on these road courses, on these types of tracks.
Yeah, I think he can get up there to him and make the passes like we saw there in stage one. By the way, stage one of the Xfinity race, that's one of my favorite. That's got to be one of my favorite sequence of laps in the Xfinity Series all year so far. That was just a thrill, an absolute thrill. It was just a great job. The two of the best drivers in the world in different categories. They're on the streets of Chicago, in the busiest part of Chicago, not just like other street courses where it's out there in the the side area to keep away from the touristy area. This is right smack dab in the middle of Grant Park, and two of the best going at it, lead change after lead change after lead change. It was second to none. Larson is almost there, but I think once he gets in front of him, SVG just has the experience and more of the raw talent of figuring out on a road course or a street course how he can outmaneuver Kyle Larson a few corners ahead, and we saw that several times as they were battling back and forth with each other.
Yeah, great battle, and hopefully we see more of that. I would like to see it with an Xfinity Series regular, of course, but you had Parker Kligerman and Jesse Love up there, mixing it up a little bit. They came at home with top 5 finishes as well. So we'll see. Maybe somebody can take the fight to SVG later this year. I'd like to see his teammate AJ Allmendinger up there. It has not been a good year for him, and particularly a frustrating weekend. Once again, he went off course and hit the wall here in the Xfinity race, was able to recover from that up to an 11th place finish, was not as fortunate in the Cup Series race, and ended up, I think, third to last on Sunday. So not a good sort of deal for him. But again, at least he was able to salvage something here in the series where he is also competing for championship honors as well. So we'll keep an eye on how he can continue to rebound from this, as Josh Williams as well. A solid day for him. Not the colleague driver that we expect to see competing for wins on these types of tracks, but still another good solid run for him nonetheless, with a 12th place here, 7th place back in Portland last month. So, good to see him picking up this program a little bit as well.
What about Connor Mozak for Junior Motorsports? Another great result for him in that 88.
And Austin Green as well, another top 10 for him. So excited to see what he can do on a couple of the short tracks coming up later this year as well. But he's had some fantastic runs to start his career in the Xfinity Series, that's for sure. Now, another name in the top 10 was Joey Logano. We'll come back to the just a nice segue, Brandon. We'll come back to the last question in that segment here. But since we're talking about the top 10 finishers, let's transition a little bit here to an open segment. I think most people have seen the news by now. Joey Logano did finish 8th in the Xfinity Series race on Saturday, and I think that confirmed what a lot of people were thinking might happen this weekend. The equipment certainly over at AM Racing is capable of such a finish. And we got some news earlier today confirmed by both driver and team. Hailie Deegan officially out at AM Racing altogether. It's not just a one-race deal. Josh Berry will be in the 15 this weekend at Pocono. Now, Deegan released this statement just before 10 o'clock this morning. Beginning this season, I had a lot of excitement and hope in taking my next step in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. It's something I've been working towards for years and always dreamt about. I worked hard to prepare for this season after the team pursued me to drive their car. Unfortunately, it has not turned out the way that I expected. There are always several reasons within a race team as to why things do or do not work, but sadly, our goals no longer align. With that being said, myself and AM Racing will be parting ways. The only thing I am focused on is getting back to being competitive. That is all that matters to me. I'm working as quick as possible to find the best opportunities to get back to the track. I'm thankful for the following that I have and everyone who supports me. It's truly only me that knows the whole story and what I need to succeed. See you at the track soon. That's from Hailie Deegan. And then a few minutes later, AM Racing putting out a statement of their own. AM Racing and Hailie Deegan have decided to part ways effective immediately. We are grateful for Hailie's contributions and dedication as the driver of a number 15 Ford Mustang during her time with the race team. We wish Hailie the best in her future endeavors and look forward to her continued success on and off the track. So, Brandon, I think the part of that is catching people's eyes the most is when Hailie says our goals no longer align. That's an interesting kind of soundbite from that quote there and that statement that she put out. She also says she's working on trying to find an opportunity to get to the track soon. I know we've been saying the last few weeks on this show, maybe ARCA would be the best landing spot for her, given how her last few seasons in the Truck Series went. But once again, just what's your general reaction to the news that I think at this point isn't too surprising, unfortunately?
Yeah, just overall gutted for her. And when we heard that Logano was going to be in the car for Chicago, it was sort of the red flag last weekend or last Monday. We talked about that and how I felt like this is turning into like a Trevor Baynes situation from 2018, whenever that took place with Roush Fenway basically at their last resort, last bitter end, and bringing in the help from Matt Kenseth and others. But yeah, this is really. I didn't expect it to be permanent. I thought maybe it was going to be out for one race. I guess I was being naive in that sense. I thought it was going to be for one race, and then they said in the Chicago weekend that it was going to be also for Pocono, and you think, oh no, and then we get the news that it's actually that she's out of the team. So, ARCA is the last place she did have success. Trucks didn't go well either with ThorSport. It's just a really touchy subject, Ben, and so I'm not really sure how to attack it in a way that is respectful. But I mean, we've been talking about Hailie Deegan and this is a make or break year for her for months and months. And last year we talked about it. I don't discount her talent, but it's not working. And the goals they're talking about there, I think AM Racing is looking down the line at what's happening next year with Ford Performance, and they want to fit somewhere in that puzzle. And they probably think time is of the essence, and we can't do it with Hailie. And so we need to find someone who can thoroughly test our equipment and show potential buyers into AM Racing what we're capable of, or maybe drivers next year. It's not working out for either AM Racing or Hailie Deegan. Hate it for that, but she will find a landing spot somewhere. I hope. And the way she said it in the PR statement, the opportunities that I have. I saw that somewhere in that last paragraph. So when I first read that, I thought, oh, does she have something? Yeah, does she have something lined up possibly? When she said, "I'm thankful for the following that I have," speaking about opportunities, I would think.
Yeah, I kind of read that as just maybe her fan base and her
Gotcha.
supporters there. But she again does say she's working on trying to find those opportunities, and I would have to think there's some team out there at some level that would certainly be interested in her services in the not too distant future. I doubt that she's going to be completely out of a seat for very long here. And again, Brandon, I know, like you said, it's not fun talking about this. We wish we could be talking about her, in a much more positive sense, running competitively in this series. But Joe and I talked about Deacon's career kind of being in a crossroads on Women in Motorsports last week, and we got two comments. We got more than two comments, but two comments in particular stood out to me. One basically saying, you guys are just being way too hard on her. You're expecting too much of her, and maybe you boys just don't want to see a girl come in and tear it up and have success here at this series. And then
No,
we had
I
another.
want to see that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, but this
please.
is the thing, though. The exact same video. We had a comment from somebody else saying, well, you fanboys just don't want to accept that she's talentless and she can't drive in this series and it was never going to work out. And I'm like, well, I guess that's how you've achieved being neutral and objective in your
Neutrality.
analysis, is when you have people on both sides thinking you're totally off the deep end in terms of your analysis here, and it's the complete polar opposite response. I guess that's when you know that you're doing a good job remaining objective there. But regardless, the point being, you can't find something to say that's going to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. I think you only need to be on the internet for a few minutes to have that be proven to you. But
And that's why I find it so difficult to say anything about this, because
yeah,
I mean, either way, you'll either think I'm the S word, or you'll think or you know think I'm being too hard on her. So
yeah,
I mean, what do you want me to say?
yeah. Well, and again, that's why to be in this business, you have to be able to have thick skin, because no matter what you say, there's going to be somebody out there that hates you for it. And certainly on a subject like this, nonetheless, where something is so polarizing here. Let's catch up on the chat as we continue this discussion here. Do you think other rookies, this is from TK, do you think other rookies doing so well hurt her more? Maybe perhaps, certainly the Jesse Loves of the world, it's proof that, you can come in, there are exceptional talents. I mean, Ty Gibbs was another example of that, skipping over the truck series entirely after a lot of success in ARCA. But again, I think if you look at their career trajectories, scoring double-digit wins in ARCA, I think in a single season. I think Jesse Love had 10 wins in ARCA last year, if I recall correctly. We were calling him Jesse Verstappen on this show because he was so dominant in that series. So, I think Jesse Love was expected to outperform Hailie Deegan coming into this year. And again, that's not, necessarily Hailie Deegan's fault. It's just, where they are in terms of their development and the performance that we saw before they got to this level. And so you put them both in an Xfinity car, you would expect that Love's going to pick it up a little bit quicker.
And look, Ben, this is the point that I think AM Racing is trying to make, and I think we're going to see it next weekend at Pocono Raceway. Joey Logano finished 8th for AM Racing, 8th in that same car. I think if Hailie Deegan were in that car at Chicago, we would have saw her finish 31st, caught up in an accident, 28th.
Yeah, I mean
somewhere that's not a
I hate
bad
to. Yeah,
guess.
I'm just going to say, 28th. Yeah, 28th probably is much more realistic. And even then, I think
we see her results every week. We know what they're talking about.
I think the whole question, I think the whole reason that AM Racing did this to begin with was they need the owner points. I mean, there was no, forget finishing the race in the, bottom end of the top 30 or outside the top 30. There were questions as to whether or not she was going to be able to qualify. If she didn't put down a competitive enough lap time in qualifying, would she even be able to start the race? Because Brad Perez didn't qualify for the race. He's obviously had some strong road course runs and lesser equipment even this year in the Xfinity Series. And, with Joey Gase's team, obviously, we saw what happened to Frankie Muniz out in Portland. That team obviously doesn't have the equipment or the support that, Deegan was getting at AM Racing with their technical alliance with SHR. But, Brad didn't make the race. It's not an indictment on his talent. It's just a clear indication of how stacked the entry lists in the field were. So, again, I feel like you have to judge everybody on an individual performance. So, again, TK following up here, SVG and Love doing really well. Well, we knew, SVG, it's kind of strange to call him a rookie in this setting here, right? Is he technically by the books a rookie in Xfinity this year? Of course. Is he a rookie, at the Chicago street race? Should he have had the rookie stripes on his car this weekend? Probably not. That's just...
Yeah, and also for the Cup winner of the last year to have the rookie stripe on this year was funny too.
On the Xfinity car this year, right?
Yeah, but also on the Cup car, he had the rookie stripes on.
Reminds me when they put it on Bill Elliott's car when he did his one-off return at Road America, because he never raced there before,
right,
in a stock car. So, yeah, it certainly doesn't help the perspective. But again, we said on Women in Motorsport earlier this year, we know Jessie Love's probably going to be number one. SVG is going to be number one on the road courses, probably number two overall. The goal for Hailie Deegan would be to finish third in the Rookie of the Year battle. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. But, I think we knew that, they were going to be kind of in a class of their own, when it came to that. So, Corrido MVP 11 says, do you think Hailie Deegan could go to another motorsport? Well, I just see our own Jackson Lambros in the chat here. Good to see you, Jackson, and pointing out that she's competed in Michelin Pilot Challenge and Pilot Sport with Ford. So again, I think, she's had some modest success there in the few races that she's done. Maybe that could be an option for her. Obviously, taking a step down the stock car ladder, going back to ARCA, if she wanted to continue pursuing the NASCAR route, I think that would be the best landing spot for her. And of course, you look at what her father Brian and her brother Hudson are doing right now, and off-road Supercross world. I think probably not a direct move over to Supercross, going from 4 wheels to 2, I think would be a pretty radical career change at this point for her. But doing some off-road racing, I think she'd be very competitive doing that, because that's certainly more her background. They called her the Dirt Princess as she was coming up through the ranks for a reason there, and of course that's where she scored one of her K&M West wins the Las Vegas Dirt Track.
Yeah, from what little I saw from her on the Michelin Pilot Challenge with I think one year she had a car paired with Chase Briscoe, and I think one time Harrison Burton as well, just a Ford Performance group there. But pretty competitive out there on the track, and able to actually pass and maintain with the pack, and so definitely competitive on that side of the sports car world.
Yeah, and Jackson bringing up as well a similar thing going on in Indy NXT with Lindsey Brewer, who's going to be out of that seat at Hunko Salinger in their Indy NXT program for the foreseeable future as well. Another comment here from Corrido MVP 11. What Hailie Deegan's future? I don't know. If I was her, I'd just do late models, see if I can get a part-time ride. Okay, well, this is the second time I've seen this come up, and it looks like Isaac's here in the chat as well. Thinking Hailie's going to stay in Xfinity in 2025. But I think it was Isaac that brought up the 88 as well for Dale Earnhardt Jr. And, I don't disagree with this, that Junior, look who's in the 15 this week, Josh Berry, one of Junior's late model drivers. Certainly, you can attribute a lot of his success and his opportunities to the development that Dale Jr. provided through Junior Motorsports. And, goodness, it goes all the way back to Brad Keselowski, and countless drivers have come up through that pipeline and that program. There's no denying that he can develop talent very, very well. But again, I'll just say the same thing that I said to Isaac last week. I think when you look at, relatively speaking, her lack of performance compared to her teammates in the Truck Series, and then certainly lack of performance here in the Xfinity Series this year with equipment that at worst was not far off from what Cole Custer and Riley Herbst were getting, and Cole Custer being the defending champion and championship favorite again this year. I don't know how you can justify putting her in that level of a seat like this, even if it's part-time here, given what she hasn't been able to showcase in the Xfinity Series this season. I think, the next step for her, again, if she wants to stay in the NASCAR world, in the stock car racing world, go back down a level or two, probably to ARCA, try to prove yourself there. And again, maybe it doesn't even have to be with Ford. Maybe, a Chevrolet program could give her something. Maybe she could go back to Toyota and get an Venturini car. It would certainly be good equipment down there, good opportunity for her. So I wouldn't want her to, leave that door closed just because she's been a Ford driver for the last several years now. But again, I think it would be crazy to put her in a seat like that, even if it's just on a part-time basis, because I think she's proven, through her performance this year, that she probably made this jump too quickly.
Yeah, that seems to be the best course of action. Go down to ARCA, go to do a Venturini Toyota, and dominate too. Go down there and dominate with the best equipment in the field, and then we'll talk about moving back up.
Yeah, and I see no reason to believe that she would do any worse than she did 4 or 5 years ago. And I know she didn't win an ARCA race in 2020, didn't exactly set the world on fire, but she did finish third in points. She had a couple of races where, had things gone slightly differently. Maybe she could have been in the mix to win a couple of races that year. So, it's not like she was absolutely terrible in ARCA. She certainly wasn't terrible in K&N West. She was a 3-time race winner. So,
wasn't bad in SRX either.
Yeah, SRX, another good point. A couple of runner-up finishes there. And to have, again, it hasn't been great in terms of results, but she's gotten a lot of seat time. She's been full-time in a truck for 3 years and full-time in an Xfinity car for half a season now as well. It's not like, she's taken several years off and then would be jumping back into an ARCA seat. I think, she'd have a great opportunity to perform well if given the right opportunity in that series. All right, so we'll leave it there. I'm sure we'll have much more on this on Women in Motorsports later this week. Maybe even more on this on Grid tonight. I don't want to speak for Kobe Lambeth since he's not here. But that show is going to look a little bit different this week. Again, Josh Birch and Matt White are both away for the next couple of weeks. So I'll be filling in, and we're hopefully going to get somebody else from the team on later this week as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, Brandon, let's circle back to Saturday and Sunday to be fair as well. I know you and I are both in agreement on this. I think a lot of race fans are. The stage cautions being back here for the road and street courses in all 3 levels of the top series for NASCAR. Do you think that in particular on these road and street courses, does that disadvantage the best drivers on strategy because you have drivers that aren't competing for points or are only going for the race win, but also drivers that have to think about the championship battle, and it completely forces them into a box when it comes to these pre-planned cautions at the end of these stages? Do you think maybe we should go back to what we were doing last year?
This question kind of puts me in a box, I feel. Like, yes, it does put them put them at a disadvantage, yes, because if they're used to road course strategy the way that God intended, where there's no stage cautions, then yeah, that's what they're used to. But I feel like Shane Van Gisbergen has an understanding of, when I come to NASCAR, I got to play by NASCAR's rules, and this is what they're going to do. This is how my strategy is going to change. Yeah. Any comment on that?
Well, again, I know that it's kind of beating a dead horse here because, like I said, I know we're in agreement on this, and I know we've had this discussion on this show before. But again, it was so. Particularly in the Cup race, and I talked about this on Wrap Up yesterday as well. So frustrating to know that we were on a timed race clock, knowing that we had a time limit, and still knowing that in a few laps they were going to throw the caution at the end of stage 2, and for what? There's no accident to clean up. There's no weather in the area, at least not to the point where we'd have to red flag the race again. So, it's incredibly frustrating as a race fan, and I got these comments after COTA. Somebody was like, "Oh, dude, it's boring as hell. I'd rather at least see a couple of restarts for the opportunities to see some action." And I'm thinking to myself, with all due respect, because clearly, enough people feel that way that we reverted back to this. I just don't understand the desire for something that robs us of green flag racing. I understand that the next gen car has not been great on road courses, and even in year 3 now that we've had this rules package or whatever. But I don't understand the desire to throw a caution and lose laps of green flag racing. We saw it. I think fan reaction, in terms of the weather at the end of stage 1, on Sunday or yesterday rather, we were under caution for what felt like, I think, at least half an hour, because they didn't want to go rain at the end of stage one as, the rain was starting to come down harder. And again, I feel like it manipulates the race more than is necessary. And it's incredibly frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I think it didn't help that the rain was forcing us to go to the Chicago time limit and then also set a time on it. So it just happened to put a stage two finish in the middle of all that, which that's not what it's intended to be in the middle of. For to me, to NASCAR's credit, that's not how they designed that to play out. But it was funny to see Joey Hand be a stage winner. He can forever put that in his mantle.
I thought he might take the checkered. I thought
too.
maybe there was going to be an opportunity, like if they wrecked on a restart and then they just let the clock expire. We know we're not doing overtime.
Thought he's going to be the first stage 60 winner.
Yeah,
not David Reagan.
Get the diecast, put it right next to your SVG Project 91 race win from last year. That would have been epic. But he did get the stage win at least, and fourth place finish, very solid result for him. So we'll see if anything else comes of that. I think he certainly earned another opportunity in that car to future road course or wherever RFK can find the funding to get that car back out there and get that program to give him another opportunity.
It felt almost as thrilling as when Matt Kenseth won a stage with Roush at Indianapolis.
Yes. Yeah.
It was like, wow, really cool. But yeah. I did like the road course racing whenever we had no stage cautions. Let's let that let's get that out of the way.
Yes.
But I think TV appreciates when we do have the stages, and advertising partners like it that we have the stages, and so that's that is the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, I acknowledge and respect your opinion if you think that restarts are where we get the most entertainment value, and you want to see
some people think that
guaranteed. But yeah, I mean, and you have what happened in the IndyCar race this week, where aside from the delayed start, it was a caution-free race. But again, my counter to that would be we still got a very close, thrilling finish even after, what was it, 85 laps of Mid-Ohio, and it still came down to the last couple of corners on the last lap. After all of that, completely uninterrupted, multiple pit stops. That's what excites me. I don't get excited knowing that we're going to throw the caution in 3 laps and we're going to close pit road and it's going to put these teams into a box, and it's just not for me. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
All right, let's circle back here real quick. Jackson, I missed your comment earlier. Just Danica Patrick put her in a cup ride full time, because how could that go wrong here? Well, Jackson, if you can believe it, and I'm sure, I know you're on social media, you're probably seeing this as well, but I've seen some tweets today that have said, AM Racing didn't treat you right. Go put it, go talk to RFK, see if you can get him a stage 60 car. Talk to Stuart Haas, see if they can do something for, there are people out there that are thinking, well, maybe the next logical step, if this didn't work out, is the step up. And again,
keep going.
It's unfortunate for her, because I feel like that's been her whole career trajectory here. It's like, ARCA's just nothing but a bloodbath. She's wasting her time there. Put her in a truck. Well, the truck series is a complete bloodbath. But if you put her in a ThorSport truck, that's championship caliber equipment. Well, the series still can't behave themselves. So put her in Xfinity. That's a quality field. Well, AM Racing really wasn't. Were they really a Stuart Haas car? Put her in a good Xfinity car, maybe even a Cup car, and that's just. It's unfair to Haley, if we're being honest. That's not.
Is there an F2 spot open?
Yeah, not fair for her career either. And again, I want to be clear as well as we're saying all this. Jackson, I agree with this as well. I'm not going to sit here, and Brandon, I know you're not either, and just call Haley Deegan a completely talentless hack who has no place in this sport. I don't believe that at all. I think she needs the right opportunity for where she is at this point in her career. And I think, as we just saw, full-time in the Xfinity Series for now is not the answer to that. I think full-time ARCA would be the answer to that. But we'll see where she lands here. Again, like we said at the top of this segment, we know that she's actively working on pursuing opportunities to, not be out of a seat for, very long here. I haven't heard this rumor. Maybe I missed it because, again, it's been a pretty hectic day on social media, but World of Outlaws, go back to some dirt racing. Maybe that would be something she could do. I don't know. I think there's certainly certainly an opportunity for her to have a nice career for her in the world of motorsports. But I think there is some reevaluating what she has to do at this point, and that's okay. That's a common story for a lot of drivers. When they get to certain levels, things just don't work out. But that doesn't mean that her career needs to be completely dead on arrival, and we'll never hear from her again. I'm confident we'll hear from her again, probably before the end of the year. So we'll keep an eye on that. And one more comment here from Jackson. Should have been the same with Logan Sargent. Should have been the same with Raja, Jamie Chadwick, Miles Rowe, all these big story prodigies rather. But again, Raja Caruth won a race in trucks this year. Jamie Chadwick won an Indy NXT race. Miles Rowe was a champion. I think that was the next logical step. Yeah. The only one I could kind of see being the closest apples to apples comparison would be Logan Sargent, but even then, Sargent was fighting for third in the F2 standings. So I think was he the most deserving out of that class? I think Felipe Drugovich certainly. It's criminal that he hasn't gotten an F1 opportunity. But I don't think it was necessarily outside the realm of reason to put Logan Sargent in that Williams last year. But for him on an individual level, probably would have been best for him if he had another year in F2. So again, I think that's a common theme as well. Sometimes we do have to give rookies time to get up to speed, but at the same time, you do have to at least show some sort of potential, some sort of possibility that you're going to take that step forward in the not too distant future. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that from Hailie Deegan at this point. But it's not to say we're never going to see it. She needs to be somewhere else for this point in her career. And again, I'm confident that she's going to find a deal that lands her with an opportunity like that. All right, a couple more comments here. I think Hailie Deegan might end up like Ralph Earnhardt. Ralph Earnhardt could not make it work in NASCAR, so he went back to dirt racing, stayed there until his shocking passing. Yeah, I mean, that's again, going way back in terms of an example, but again, I think Ralph Earnhardt didn't have too much success in I guess it was strictly stock or Grand National at the time, but that's not to say he wasn't a talented driver in his own right. SVG Cup car seemed good this time. Disappointing to lose first gear at Coda and have a different issue at Indy last year as well. Yeah, I mean, again, it hasn't been the results that we were expecting from SVG on the Cup side of things here, but I think certainly not something that you can look at and say this is an indictment on his talent by any means. Obviously he won last year at Cup and has been tearing it up on the Xfinity side of things. So hopefully he can get it turned around and have a couple of good runs of that 16 to end the year.
And we still can't get Wendy's to victory lane, not even with the saucy nugs.
Yeah, they've had. I mean, you want to talk about Wendy's at Chicago, right? I mean, they were on Noah Gragson's car last year.
Yeah. And
then SVG this year just hasn't been.
They had the whole endorsement deal with Fox in the Daytona 500 for a few years too, and
yeah,
I just thought it was funny them being there where Chicago is all in with Bubba Wallace, and they've got the whole rest of that track with McDonald's and 2311 McDonald's all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. And completely agree with Tony Dunn. Great racing between SVG and Larson. Dale Earnhardt Jr. did call out AM Racing for not developing her. Reason why I said 88 might be there. I don't know. I mean, I listened to the download this week or this past week rather. We'll see what Dale has to say this week if they touch on it during the Derby Air segment or episode this week. I don't know if they will or not, but I don't. Again, I'll go back and listen to it a second time. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't feel like it was necessarily a call out here. I thought that he was just talking about the opportunity, and he brought Joey on because Joey won the previous week at Nashville, and talking about the opportunity and whether or not Penske was going to have any sort of say in how that car was set up for the Chicago Xfinity race. So again, maybe I missed it, but I don't know. I didn't get this sense that Dale Jr. comes out and slams AM Racing for ruining Hailie Deegan's career. That wasn't necessarily what I took away from that. All right, Brandon, if you don't have anything else, I think we'll finally move on here and go to Irwindale for a doubleheader in the ARCA Menards Series West. And it was Sean Hingorani who did what SVG couldn't on Sunday, unfortunately. That was sweep the weekend here, took the win on July 4th In race 1, Isabella Robusto finished second. Jake Finch was third, so a 1-2-3 finish for Venturini Motorsports in the first race of the weekend. So a good run for Hingorani there, as it was for race 2. He picked up the win there as well. It was an unfortunate deal for Isabella Robusto, who was leading the race, led a bunch of laps, looked to be the favorite for the win. Unfortunately, with just under 30 laps to go, had a flat tire take her out of contention. You see her down there in 17th. But again, let race 1 be the indication of how strong she was this weekend. I think we can probably say at this point, assuming she gets more opportunities later this year, I think she said in her Instagram post, Elko is going to be her next start with Venturini in the ARCA platform. I think it might be a matter of when, not if, she takes that first career victory in ARCA with Venturini. So great to see her having a strong run. And again, we'll have more on that on Women in Motorsports later this week. But Brandon, I want to talk a little bit about what happened after the race. Tim Huddleston, the father of Trevor Huddleston, who competes for High Point Racing in the ARCA Menards Series West, and kind of his home race here, so to speak. Obviously, Tim being a track promoter and having the microphone to interview the race winner. He refused to do that on Saturday and was caught on the hot mic yelling profanity at, I believe, a number 15 Venturini crew member, and said the 15 team has no respect. They don't need the interview. We're not going to interview him. And he went straight to Jack Wood. And then, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but he said Jack Wood picking up the win and then corrected himself, picking up second place. I don't know if that was verbatim what he said, but something along those lines there at the end. Just a crazy turn of events, Brendan. I know track promoters sometimes have a reputation for things like that, but maybe not this publicly. You know, did you take anything away from that was just surprising or something that you'd never seen before?
I couldn't tell. I thought there was like two different voices going on when I first saw this from the guy who recorded his Flow Racing account. I thought the first voice was some guy up in the PA booth, and then the next guy was someone down boots on the ground on the start finish line. But I guess it's all Mr. Hingorani. Is that true? Is that everything we hear is? I'm sorry, from
Huddleston. Yeah,
Huddleston.
I think it's all Tim Huddleston as far as I understood it. At least as soon as Huddleston comes in with his introduction. But yeah, Go ahead.
Okay. If that's the case, he must be really upset, and he paid a lot of money for that fence, because as soon as you start climbing on it, he was very upset that he was ruining his perfectly good fence. Someone put in the replies there that's no Elio Castroneves.
Yeah, or Tony Stewart, perhaps, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know Sean Hingorani has rubbed some people the wrong way over the years. Obviously, he had a whole deal at Mid-Ohio last year with Dean Thompson, and ultimately served a one-race suspension for that. Didn't stop him from winning the ARCA West Championship, and now we'll see. I know he's kind of been on a race-by-race sort of deal with several different teams to start his title defense this year. I believe he took the points lead. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the points in front of me, but he's trying to make it to every race and defend his championship at the very least, and picked up a few more races with Venturini here. And I've got to think, he'll be in a good position to finish out the year based on how this weekend went. Again, it's not, an issue of talent. I think it's just been an issue of maturity and attitude with him, but that doesn't excuse what Huddleston was doing behind the mic either, I don't think. I mean, I understand, potentially feeling disrespected. I don't know what was said, off camera or off the record there that the microphones didn't pick up, but clearly he was not happy. But again, I don't think that was an excuse to go as far as he did, and I think he got rightly called out for it for being maybe just a tad bit unprofessional there with how he conducted that non-interview, I guess you could say.
Yeah, a little over the line, and just refusal to interview the winner and call the second place finisher the winner. Just not a good look for a track promoter. And Irwindale is already under a lot of microscopic, people paying attention to it, because it's on people are thinking that it might be gone in the next couple of years because of where it is, and
I've heard that, and I've heard that it's actually happening for real this time, but I feel like they've been saying that for the last 10, 15 years at the same time. So I don't know. I mean, I understand California land is prime real estate. I mean, just look at what happened to Auto Club last year. which is unfortunate, but we'll see. I hope it's not the last ride at Irwindale. They can pull something together at the 11th hour, but that would certainly be an unfortunate way to go out as a track promoter, right? If this is your last major ARCA race or ARCA event or West Series event, that would be unfortunate.
Yeah, not a good look at all for Mr. Huddleston, and I wish better for Irwindale. That's for sure.
For sure. All right, we are going to move on now to a recap of Formula 2 and Formula 3 this weekend at Silverstone. Obviously, a big weekend over there. Congratulations to Lewis Hamilton on finally picking up another win with Mercedes. I know certainly an emotional win, probably the most popular win of his career, what he was able to do this weekend in Formula 1. But we also had F2 and F3 there. And we have Mara Piacentino, who's been on a lot of the grid pre-race shows in the last few months. She joined me rather, yesterday after the F1 race to discuss the F2 and F3 weekend. So here's our conversation and our recap of those races. We'll play that for you right now. All right, Mara Piacentino here with us to recap F2 and F3. Thank you, Mara, for joining us for the Encore show this week. I want to start with the sprint race in F2. We had Isaac Hadjar get the first pole of his career during the qualifying session. It was an all-French front row with Campos driver Victor Martins joining him on the front row. And a difficult qualifying session for championship leader Paul Aaron. He qualified 12th for both the feature and the sprint. But it was Kimi Antonelli who's been in the news quite a bit with the Mercedes rumors. He got a great chance and opportunity with a 10th place qualifying spot. The grid inversion therefore put him on pole for a sprint race. And we had a lot of intense rain during the sprint. Antonelli managed to keep the first position ahead of other drivers like Maloney and Miney. But bad weather stopped the race on the fourth lap. And we had the safety car join the track because of several incidents. There were several drivers all out of the race by about lap 13. But it was Antonelli who led for the whole sprint and ended up taking his maiden win in F2 ahead of Maloney. It was Miney and Bortoletto that had a great battle for the final spot on the podium at the last corner. Bortoletto overtook his teammates. So what are your thoughts? Just first off, I have to ask, with all the discussions and rumors and everything on Antonelli finally maybe living up to the hype and taking his maiden F2 victory here.
Yeah, it's really fine because we were just listening how Antonelli was good, but we never really had the chance to see him winning in F2. So it was a relief also for him because, all these rumors do not create a peaceful environment around him. So I think that it's a relief for everybody.
Well, and then the feature race earlier this morning, I guess this morning is where we're recording this. Obviously, this will be airing on tomorrow's Encore show, but it was Isaac Hadjar who took the feature win in front of Maloney and the young American Jack Crawford. So with this win, Hadjar is now the new championship leader with 16 points on Aaron and then double that much, 32 back to Maloney. So what did you think in terms of the predictability of this feature race here? Kind of all throughout the weekend, I feel like that was kind of a theme, was a little bit of unpredictability, but was the feature race here perhaps more predictable?
Totally. Yes, Hadjar is a very convincing driver, but sometimes too emotional and he commits mistakes. He has the capabilities and the car to win races, so he just needs to be more consistent. The race offered some beautiful challenges since the beginning between Martins and Birman, which had a great start as well.
Yeah, we talked about Behrman last week, of course, and kind of in the same boat as Antonelli, a driver that is being highly rated and potentially on a short list for an F1 seat next year. And of course, Behrman has that seat now with Haas and made his debut for Ferrari earlier this year, but it hasn't been the start to their F2 seasons for Behrman and Antonelli, at least up until the last couple of rounds here that people were expecting. But this weekend in particular, Silverstone, was that a disappointing weekend for him?
Yes, especially for Behrman, who did not finish the sprint, and although a great start, he ended 7th. They had a constant and clean race, but both of them were expecting more from this weekend.
And then from the highest of highs, I guess, to the lowest of lows, Antonelli had a crash with Miney on turn 3 in the feature, so that was his race done right there. What happened to him in the feature?
Yes, it's disappointing because we know how strong Antonelli is in rainy condition, but after the sprint race, I was expecting him to battle in order to understand also if Rima was able to change the negative trend of this season.
And then let's talk about second place now. Maloney had a good weekend finishing in that spot in both the sprint and the feature races. What can you tell us about his weekend?
Yes, he can start a new chapter in his championship. He struggled to finish the races and get some points since Imola. But considering that the races have been won by different drivers like Aaron, Ajar, and Bartoleto, and therefore the points have been spread among other drivers, Maloney can still be among the top drivers in the standing.
Well, before the Silverstone weekend, like I mentioned, Paul Aaron came into this round leading the championship. That's no longer the case. How is this bad result going to influence how he approaches the remaining rounds of the season?
Well, surely the result is not good for his path in Formula One, but he's consistent. He just lost some points in Australia, and then he was always there racing for podiums and points. This weekend, external events has ruined his weekend. Yesterday, the crash with Martina, and today the contact with Dusen, which led to a 10-second penalty, which he has paid during the pit stop. He has to forget these events and have a fresh start in Hungary.
Yes, well, like you mentioned, we've got more races still to come. The season still has some life left in it. How do you think he'll be able to react to this? Can he still win this championship and bounce back from this weekend?
Yes, I think that he still believes he can win the championship. He's a very committed driver, and he will not lose his temper and follow the negative thoughts. Again, Hungary is a completely different track, slower and tortuous. Let's wait and see.
And then rounding off the podium, the young American U.S. driver, Jack Crawford, like I mentioned, he was leading the race, I understand, at one point. What happened that shuffled him back to P3?
Yes, he had a penalty. So Crawford basically paid for his team mistake. The unsafe release, it's a totally team responsibility. The man with the lollipop should be considered responsible. Crawford could not do anything else than trusting the team because the driver does not see properly outside the car.
All right, well, we'll be back with Formula 2 in 2 weeks' time in Hungary. That's a completely different track from Silverstone, so what are you expecting there?
Yes, the track, which is not loved by many drivers, but because overtaking is difficult. Therefore, qualifying is crucial. Of course, there is the DRS and the strategy, but qualifying is as important as in Monaco. I hope also to see better weather conditions, although this English rain gave us some fun races.
Certainly did, all the way up through the Formula 1 race earlier today. Now let's go back and quickly review the Formula 3 weekend as well. Lindblad, Mini, Boyson, that was the podium. Boyson got a 10-second penalty during the race. Mini is, again, the championship leader, but it's Prima who's on the top step of the podium. They will also be back for their next race weekend in Hungary in 2 weeks. So what were your reactions from the Formula 3 weekend?
So, yes, the race has been decided more on the strategies. For example, when Lindblad and Mini decided to change the tires with the slick tires, followed by other drivers. So.
Yeah, well, I think, like you mentioned, the rain really played a role all throughout the weekend in all three levels here, fundamentally, especially on Saturday here in F3. But I think the feature race particularly was perhaps one of the more unpredictable ones of the weekend.
Correct. The rain was a game changer, and only in the last laps we saw a stable weather condition. Therefore, the race was easier to follow, and we saw the values that we were used to see. Volzin, Lindblad, and Mini gained seconds over seconds and gained every lap.
All right, Mara, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we can get you back on the Encore show sometime soon. But we appreciate your help covering these series. So we'll see you again shortly.
Thank you.
All right, just a few more notes there. I noticed when I was editing that for the show tonight, I accidentally put the sprint results up twice in terms of 21st to 30th. So just for the record there, that's what the back end of the feature field looked like. Also, clarification on Bortoleto. I mentioned he had that overtake on Mini. He was, you might have noticed in the results, relegated back to P4. He had a 5-second time penalty, so he finished third on the road, but got shuffled back to fourth there in the final results. So again, we'll continue tracking those series on this show and hopefully get either Josh or Mara back for the next race weekend in Hungary to help us recap those. We move on now to Indy NXT. Let's go through these results here real quick as well. It was Kyle Collette who picked up the win at Mid-Ohio this weekend. In terms of a championship, Louis Foster in second, Jacob Abel in third. Foster extends his championship lead over Abel. Collette is third in points, and for good measure, Callum Hedge is fourth, although he is a ways back. So your top three in the points, top three in the race this weekend. And if you had to make a stretch, I would say maybe Colette's still a championship contender, but probably going to come down to Foster and Abel. But then again, major dynamic shift in the schedule for the final 5 races are on ovals. We have Iowa, Gateway, Portland, Milwaukee, and Nashville to close out the year, Portland being the lone road course in that schedule coming up. So maybe that'll throw a whole new wrench in this championship fight. We'll just have to wait and see. But your championship contender is having a strong weekend here at Mid-Ohio. That's your update on Indy Next. And Brandon, unless you have any further comment on that race, we can roll into our one shining moment.
Yeah. For this weekend, I've got to go with the man who finished 4th. That's Parker Kligerman. That was a really great run there for Parker Kligerman and Scott Borchetta and Big Machine Racing. And also to turn around, of course, as he always does with NBC on the next day and do the broadcasting duties, and to get through that rain delay and show us the different wet parts of the race surface and how there's all those different types of surfaces on the Chicago streets that need to be accounted for and addressed from drivers. So he gets my one shining moment for his very busy weekend.
Certainly good pick. I'm going to go back over to ARCA to give my one shining moment to Isabella Robusto, who, again, I think, you can perhaps say it's a matter of when, not if, she's going to get that win at some point later this year. Again, very close to it in race 2. 17th place does not tell the whole story in that regard, but, probably should have at least finished second again on Saturday, but, looked to be in prime position to take the win. Unfortunately, had that tire issue that took her out of contention, but great run for her in terms of pace. And, again, was chasing Sean Hingorani down on Thursday even. Looked like she might have a shot to win that race. Perhaps if she had managed her tires a little bit better, could have gotten by him on Thursday. But still great results nonetheless for her. And look forward to seeing what she can do in her future opportunities later this year in that car, however many races that's going to be. That's going to do it for us here tonight on the Encore show. So thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you especially to everybody who follows us on our social media platforms. You too can make sure you hit the bell and subscribe button on YouTube, especially so that you don't miss any of our new programming, but also be sure you follow us on X/Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads. We are at Grid Network TV on all social media. So thank you all so much for the support. Thank you again for the 1,000 subscribers. Now we're well on the road to 2,000. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can join these wonderful folks over on our Patreon. Thank you again so much to Colin Deschelle, Mark Robin, David, and Matthew for your support and keeping us on the air throughout 2024 and beyond, and helping us continue on our goal of $500 per month so we can begin attending races on site on a more regular basis. And that'll only help us continue to expand our coverage for you, the viewers. You can also become a member through the Grid Network YouTube channels. A couple have done already, so we thank you for those as well. If you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below. You can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow this motorsports media outlet. Or if you're watching on YouTube, we, of course, now have the Super Chats enabled as well. Now, like I mentioned, Grid Tonight's going to look a little bit different for the next couple of weeks. I'll be joining Kobe Lambeth on Wednesday night. Hopefully we'll have at least one other Grid Network team member joining us as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Women in Motorsports should be back later this week as well with Joe Samaniego and Emily Sharp, so we'll recap Isabella Robusto's weekend a little bit more and go even further in depth into what's going on with Haley Deegan and her release from AM Racing. And then, of course, you can stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage this upcoming weekend. And then we'll be back next Monday for Encore 167 hours from now. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off for the weekend?
It's an odd way of thinking about it. I got 3 things. One, I'm glad that Joshua Birch is taking a holiday, and I hope he enjoys that and gets some good rest that he does desperately need. Second, I was wondering why ABB was on some of the signage at Chicago, and then I finally see why that was, the new electric vehicle prototype that went to Greenville Pickens. And and also they did a standing start at Chicago, which is a perfect place to have an EV race if they're going to do that in the future, paired up with the weekend. Because, I mean, I'm sure it's great for the city as well to have something that doesn't make much noise as well. And then finally, going to be back on USRN next Sunday with Matthew Owens, and going to help him with the Pocono Cup Series broadcast. So excited for that as well.
The only reason I brought up 167 hours was because I noticed we're like right on an hour for this show. It's I have 8:01 now on my clock. But yeah, trying to do the quick math in my head, remembering it's 168 hours in a week there. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the electric vehicle demonstration there. And again, I think a little bit of panic from NASCAR fans this weekend who don't want to see the EV take over the Cup Series. I don't think you guys have to worry at least any time in the near future or the foreseeable future. You know, maybe by 2050, you know, who knows what the motorsports world is going to look like. But as for right now, I think this would be an addition or a supplement or, you know, something that they're testing out for the technology for many years in the future, potentially when it might become a little bit more necessary. But as for right now, I you know, maybe hybrid technology like we've seen in Formula One, like we just saw it in IndyCar this weekend, but you're not going to see you know, a 20-lap electric vehicle race at Talladega with NASCAR Cup Series cars anytime soon. I can promise you that.
No, it's not doomsday. And honestly, for those that are so concerned about it, by the time they actually might go full different kind of fuel, we probably won't be around anyway. So
yeah, I mean it's kind of a morbid way of putting it, but you're not wrong. I mean, I think it's a lot more of the older generation. Because again, I saw those comments like, I've been a fan since the 79 Daytona 500. If they do this, I'm done. Well, they're probably not going to do it in the way you're fearing until, you know, he would, again, I don't want to think of it like that, but it's, you're not necessarily wrong there. I think, you know, as for the rest of your lifetime, you probably don't have to worry too much. We're talking way into the future here. Yeah. You know, we might be as old as they are now when we see
2100. Let's put it that way.
In Cup, yeah. But we have a technology here. You know, I think you look at sustainability efforts, you look at what Formula E's done. I have no problem with them at least testing out the technology to see how sustainable it might be in the future. So, and again, like you mentioned, Brandon, I think Chicago street race, you know, the vast majority of Formula E races are on city streets. I think the perfect place to demo that. All right. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on everything else we normally follow here for the Encore show. Thank you all so much again for tuning in tonight. For Brandon Crossland, for Mara Piacentino, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. Have a good week, everyone.